All right, I just got done interviewing the mayor of Farragut, Mayor Ron Williams. And in this episode of The Den, we talk about a lot of hot topics like traffic and what's being done to help it, the interstate and what the future plans are with it, schools, where they're coming, and what's being done to help the schools in Farragut with overcrowding and traffic. We also talked about an update on the Biddle Farm Town Center and what restaurants are coming near you. So, if you're interested in knowing what's going on in Farragut, then this is the episode for you. All right, well, welcome to another episode of The Den, where we talk about all things real estate and community related. Today, I have honestly a special guest. I'm actually kind of humbled to have the mayor of Farragut, Ron Williams, in the Den today. And we're going to talk about Farragut. We're going to talk about what's going on. We're going to cover some of these questions that some locals have asked that I talk about. But before we get started, I want to introduce Ron. I'm going to read a little bit of his bio off of the Farragut website. This is some stuff you may not know, even though it's public information. Ron Williams is a Knoxville native. He grew up in Powell and Fountain City and received his education at the Knoxville State Area Votech, SME, and the University of Tennessee. He spent a number of years in Southern California managing a large manufacturing plant that produced aircraft and race engine parts before returning to East Tennessee to accept a position as a machine tool sales engineer for Sun Products. After 28 years and 1.3 miles of travel, that's a lot.
Million miles.
1.3 million miles of travel with over 800 successful projects, Ron was able to retire from the road in 2015. Currently, he does some part time consulting from his home office, with most of his time spent on the phone. He stays current with today's technology by helping race teams with special projects. That's pretty cool. I love race cars. And Terry Joe and I were just talking about possibly one of these weekends here going to one of the dirt tracks. I don't know if that's the kind of stuff you get into, but Ron was elected South Ward alderman in 2016 and mayor in 2018. His reelection as mayor was certified in August of 2022. He's also served 2 terms on the Farragut Board of Zoning Appeals, and as and is and is a 2015 Introduction to Farragut graduate. So your time in Farragut government goes back a minute. A Sugarwood resident for more than 25 years, he has served 5 separate terms on the Sugarwood Homeowners Association board and is a past president. In addition, he served on the Planning and Architectural Committee for over 15 years and has worked diligently on all neighborhoods improvement projects. Ron and his wife, TC, have been married for over 30 years. In his spare time, Ron is in his garage with friends restoring old cars and trucks, which that sounds like a lot of fun too. So wow, what a that's a career.
Pretty much sums it up. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a career. So just to get things started, what got you going in local government? I mean, once you were able to retire from all that travel and everything, what got you involved in local government?
Well, when I was in California, I was appointed by Governor Brown as a liaison between manufacturing and Orange County legislative body. So in that role, what I tried to do was be a mediator between the manufacturing base that was out there that actually supported the whole town area or the whole county of Orange County, and the legislative body that felt that they were a beach community and really did need manufacturing. But so I kind of bridged the gap, and that's what kind of got me started as a good listener.
So what? Okay, so since you got kind of involved, since you took on the alderman position, and what has that been like? What has it been like being in the town of Farragut local government like that?
Okay, that's a good question because whenever I was in the HOA, uh, we dealt quite a bit with the town on different projects as we improved our green space and our clubhouse and our fields and our tennis courts and all. So I kind of got to know all the players, and then Mayor McGill and I were good friends, and anyway, we were both on the board
Okay.
there at the HOA, and that's kind of, and so was Dot LaMarche, and of course she was also vice mayor at the time. But so I kind of got to know them, and whenever I first was elected, we had 16 derelict buildings. We had 3 burned down houses. We had 1 burned down barn and a Quonset hut back behind Century 21. It was an old mill building that the roof had caved in on. And so our town really, when you went to the center of it and you looked there at Campbell Station, Kingston Pike, it was, you had 3 derelict buildings.
I remember the gas station quite well.
And across the county corner from it was the old restaurant,
Yeah.
which at one time was Ruby Tuesdays.
Yeah.
And the roof had fell in on it. And so we kind of looked like a town in decline. And my goal was to get started on getting with the property owners and either having them tear down the property and build it back properly, or remodel it, either or. And it took about 5 years to really get that done. And throughout my alderman years and then as mayor, we have since, if you look around, there's no more derelict buildings. There's no more burned down houses or barns or any of that. Everything has been either renovated or improved, or it may even be a blank piece of property now.
So, kind of going back just a little bit, would you say your time as HOA president, your involvement with the town from a resident standpoint, did that really kind of prepare you for that position as alderman? Or is it something like once you jump in, it's a whole new thing?
Well, it did prepare me because as a hands-on engineer, I'm a roll up your sleeves, do it type of person. I'm a hands-on mayor. So I try to be involved in everything that I need to be involved with, but at the same time, I've got a great staff that know what to do, and they get out there and do it with very minimal amount of supervision.
So, as an alderman or mayor, how much time would you say you invest into that position?
Another good question. To start off with, I had to kind of learn what I didn't know. And that was one of the things that Mayor McGill suggested. So I started doing MTAS classes, which could be a few hours long or a few days long. And so the state of Tennessee had them, University of Tennessee had them. The first few years, I was investing over 200 hours a year in just classwork to try to learn all the different ins and outs of town government. And so it has really paid off because we are kind of unique in that we have everything here. In other words, we have our own planning commission board, all of our own committees and boards for the different functions in our town.
So there's quite a few people involved. When you boil it down to, it's not just the mayor and aldermen. You have all these separate committees and stuff that.
We sure do.
So there's a lot of people involved in local government.
There is, and we have paid staff that have jobs that they do daily. But then the volunteers that are on the committees and the boards, all of them are volunteers, and none of them are paid.
So to that note, your position, paid or unpaid?
Unpaid.
So I think sometimes a lot of people, because that's not necessarily the case with, say, Knox County Mayor,
True.
or Knoxville Mayor. Those are paid positions. I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize, because I have seen comments and posts where it's like, well, we pay taxes, we pay their salary, and it's like, well, not to split hairs, but you don't pay their salary. They're residents like you volunteering for that position.
We're elected,
Elected,
but
yes.
we are volunteers. And that's something where in a municipality that don't have a separate property tax, like what the case with us, we all have Knox County property tax, and but we don't have municipal property tax. And when you look at, say, Knox County, the mayor and the commissioners are separate from each other. Same thing with the city mayor and her city council. But in our case, I'm one of five. So we have five of us that are on the board.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way that we're structured as far as our charter and the way we're incorporated. So a good example of how that comes into play is with when we had the committee downtown on the advanced Knox. I had to have my town administrator sit in on that instead of myself, because you've seen Jacobs there, you've seen Kincannon there. They're separate from their respective councils, but in ours, I'm one of five. If I had sit there, then I would not have been able to come back and talk to all the aldermen about what went on. In this case, David sit there, and he was able to talk to each one of us individually. I was in the audience, but I wasn't sitting at the table.
Right.
If I had been and come back and talk with the respective aldermen, that would have been a violation of sunshine law. So we're very careful that we don't do that. We try to make everything transparent and above board.
So we're already sort of kind of touching on a topic that I wanted to get in. That was what makes Farragut unique, and one of them is Farragut is a town. It does not collect a separate property tax, but so how does it get its revenue?
Revenue is based off of the sales tax that we generate here. It goes to the state of Tennessee, and that's in our zip code at 37934. It goes to the state of Tennessee. And then they take their part, and then there's a part that comes back to Knox County. And it's our part and their part. And they charge 1/8 to electronically send that, which is a little bit odd, but that's just the way it's been since they all had spreadsheets back eons ago. But and then once Knox County gets it, they take half of it, and that half goes to schools and our police department to fund those. We get the other half. And then the same thing with the liquor and the beer tax. Half of it we get, half of it goes to the schools.
Okay.
So that's how we generate part of it. And the other is what they call state shared, and that's where we have a census number, and it's so much per person that comes from the state of Tennessee. So it could be any, it depends on how many people you have, but most of the time, somewhere a 25,000 person town will be somewhere in the 125 to 135 range per person.
Okay.
So that between the two of them, that's how we develop our budget. Now we do have other things like permits and things of that nature, but they're pretty minor compared to the rest of it.
To sales tax. So kind of an interesting parallel when you were talking about your previous role in California, where you were the liaison basically between the businesses that created essentially the income that that town ran off, or that county, and the people who maybe kind of wanted to position themselves as something different, and maybe a little bit of some of the struggle we deal with here, because people see growth and they say, well, we're just a neighborhood community, we're just but yet the town survives off of sales tax. So your more or less like investment into more business growth or sustaining growth, even just sustaining businesses. One thing I've noticed is over the years, I've been here since 2007 in this general area. It was it seemed to not be so uncommon to see a business open, a restaurant open, and then just a year or two later be gone. Um, I would say considerable turnover. I don't really see as much turnover lately. Not that I've noticed, but that's a good thing. Um, but yeah, so like that's you want that growth, right? I mean,
Yes, you know, we listen to people with surveys, and what they generally tell us is they want more restaurants. They want local businesses that they can shop without having to get into the Turkey Creek traffic or the Bearden traffic. And so you have seen growth recently. The big deal was to first clean it up,
yeah,
get rid of all the abandoned and derelict buildings, and then at that point, people want to be here.
right,
Businesses want to be here when it's nice, and when they know that there's people here that will shop with them.
right,
And we have a lot of people say we have our fair share of non-tax-paying businesses. Well, that's part of the pie.
right,
You know, a bank, they really don't pay any taxes. A real estate office, for instance, they don't. A church, they don't. But it's all part of the pie.
right.
And it's what our residents want. They want local real estate companies. They want local banks. They want local churches.
Well, you can't. Yeah, I mean, so many things are in supporting roles. I mean, you can't have a bunch of restaurants and no place for people to bank at. I mean,
True.
that
Yeah.
it's one thing I always thought was kind of cool about that TVA credit union in Turkey Creek is they did their hours to meet kind of the demand of the people who work in Turkey Creek. So they're open much later. And it was like, okay, so they're really serving the people who work there, not just the people who live in the area. Um, and so that's something I think a lot of people don't think about is what how do we support the people who do stuff here? And I know that's kind of a hard piece to fill in.
Yes and no. You know, when you, for instance, one of the things that we have done for years is we go to the ICSC in Las Vegas. That's what they call the shopping center convention. And that's where all your big businesses are at. And people like us get out there and try to recruit them to come to our town. A good example of that was Costco. Another example was Top Golf.
Yeah.
So when you look at ones that are really high, you know, sales tax producing companies, you know, it's Costco could have went anywhere.
Well, and I mean, one block over, and that would have been a big game changer.
True.
As far as the town of Farragut's concerned. I mean,
Exactly.
you've got people coming from counties to shop there, and which is pretty awesome. So we all benefit from it locally. I think that's pretty cool. What else? What else would you say kind of makes the town of Farragut just kind of unique, at least to neighboring areas here in East Tennessee?
Well, we have a Visual Resources Review Board. They're the ones that look at signs, and we have really a very strict sign ordinance. If you noticed, well, you're a good example of the sign you put out by the road. It's a very nice sign. It's not just a billboard type of sign.
Right.
And it fits the structure of your business. And that's something that we're really keen on. And it's, you know, we don't have all the billboards and
Right.
all the blinking signs that you see in other parts of the town and other areas. We have our own public works crew that keeps everything mowed and trimmed,
Which I say I think they do a pretty good job.
and
Pretty good job.
we pave all of our own roads. So we also are probably the king at getting grants. And all of my staff has been to grant writing school. They know how to write grants. They know how to troll the sites for grants. And that's an important part when you don't have a property tax, is to be able to get grants to pay for road projects, to pay for parks, things of that nature.
So, with that being said, between the income coming through tax revenue, the grants that you all are able to get, do you foresee there ever being a need for a property tax?
Not in the way we're governed right now. Our vision is paralleling the ones that started our town
Okay.
44 years ago. And they really were looking at no property tax, but to be sustainable without it and to be small government. And we continue on with that today. And every year that we do our budget, we follow pretty much the same structure. If we were at the point where we got no sales tax for 2 years, I could be sustainable for 2 years with what we've got in savings.
Which that's, I mean, that wouldn't happen. There's no way you could go 2 years without sales tax.
Well, no, but here's the thing. Whenever there is an opportunity to get a grant, okay, a lot of times it's 50-50, could be 70-30, 80-20. And what that means is whoever is offering that, whether it be the state or the feds or whoever, then they may pay 50% of it, but we have to come up with 50% of it.
Gotcha.
So just like the town hall, we're doing a $2 million renovation. If we don't have savings, then we cannot do stuff like that.
Right.
When we bought the property out off of McPhee Road, it's a $5.5 million investment, a big piece of property. We had the money in savings to where we could do that. So what you're doing, you're building for the future. You save for the future.
Yeah.
For our kids and grandkids, basically. And so that's kind of how this town started, and it's how we'd like to continue on with it.
Well, I mean, as far as kind of growth is concerned, I mean, at this point, there's only so much more available. I mean, I feel like we're getting built out.
Well, you're in the real estate business, so kind of where we're at. We have probably 4 properties that are being built right now. We have probably 2 more that are in queue as far as, build sites. And then we have one big one that's, it's both. It's commercial and residential. And then another one that's residential right beside it that will be a challenge. And I'm talking about the Ford property and the Biddle property.
Okay.
And then you have the Craig Allen property, which is behind the fire hall. And that property there is commercial. It's kind of limited on what it can be because of the topographical lay of the land. But we're quickly running out of buildable residential and commercial. You see commercial down in Dixie Lee that's took off. That's kind of everybody else wanting to be near the town center.
Right.
But only so much can be there. And until Mr. Ford decides to do whatever he wants to do with his property, then we're pretty much where we're at.
So to kind of hit on 2 topics there. One, I think it seems smart to have that growth out towards like the Watt Road area, close to the Loudoun County line, because I feel like there's a lot of Loudoun County residents that those businesses will serve. And to that point, again, not only now those businesses aren't just relying on Farragut residents, it's the surrounding community. Plus, that brings in more sales tax revenue that does support the town of Farragut. But that just seems like a smart place to be away from Turkey Creek. Less competition, more opportunities, and in an area where there's more growth happening.
Well, whenever you look at the number of cars that come across the Loudoun County line,
A bunch.
every day, and the ones that come through the tunnel down at McPhee. We have a lot of transit, travelers that are coming through and going and coming every day. And so what you've seen just as of yesterday is Publix has announced, is it the best kept secret in town, or worst kept secret, I guess, is that there's going to be a Publix at the Watt Road and Kingston Pike corner. And that they finally did announce it. The developers had the contract signed for a while, but they were working specifically on the plat and some of the things like we wanted a walking trail on the east and west side of the property so that people could walk over from the park and shop at Publix or whatever restaurants that are on that property as well. So some of those things had to be worked out prior to Publix doing the announcement. And then across the street, Rick Chin, the developer over there, has got some plans that'll be coming in front of the Planning Commission for some commercial buildings there in front of the apartments that are being built. And then, of course, as you go down back toward town, you have another coffee shop, which Dunkin' Donuts, which would be the second Dunkin' Donuts. We have another dollar store, an auto parts store, and then across the street you have a 35,000 square foot all granite Mormon temple.
Which I've even researched this a little. I heard rumors that when a temple like that is built in an area, it tends to raise property values, which is kind of an interesting. And I mean, there's actual articles that actually cover that. That's kind of an interesting thought.
It is, and then of course right beside it's going to be a Dogtopia.
Dogtopia,
which is a doggy daycare.
Well, there you go.
And then yesterday I had a person come to talk to me about they want to put a regular daycare across the street from the dog daycare so that people can come and drop off their dog and drop off their children and then go to work or go to wherever. So I guess Mr. Horn will be talking to them about selling them a piece of property to put a daycare there. But you're going to see a different growth pattern down there with restaurants. I think a lot of what people want are drive-throughs. And so you're going to see a little bit of that. Probably everything there will be drive-throughs.
So one thing that I've heard pop up over and over and over is I think there's this misconception of people, residents, who feel that the town of Farragut has control over what comes in and what doesn't, and what a property is going to be and what it's not. I know you guys have, I know the town has some control over like some zoning, and I know they have control over maybe some architectural type stuff, but you don't really control who. I mean, if somebody wants to lease this, I didn't have to get approval to lease this space. How do you handle that with people? Because the first thing people say, oh, we don't need another dentist, we don't need another tire store, we don't need another bank. But yet, those are the people who have done the research to say, you know what these people need? They need another tire store, they need another dentist, they need another bank.
Well, we've got our fair share of all those and coffee shops, but I would not doubt me that we may have another Starbucks in Watt Road area. They tend to put them, wherever they feel that they can get the best amount of drive-through business.
Another fun fact that your proximity to a Starbucks also increases your property value.
Yes.
So just want to point that out.
It's kind of a thing where in this state of Tennessee, private property rights are king. Mm-hmm. That's for me to try to tell a property owner that he cannot sell his property. I cannot do that. Right. Or develop it. If it's whatever it is zoned, it can be built that way. Now, a lot of times you'll have people come to you and say, well, I've got agriculture. A good example was out on Virtue Road. It was called the Harville Farm. It's Lacey Harville's farm, approximately 90 acres. It was agriculture. But we had a builder come to us and want to put a subdivision in. And matter of fact, we had 2 or 3 builders, and finally there's one that settled in on it. The key there was, yes, you can ask to have it rezoned, okay? You know what, but with the rezoning, there are certain subdivision regulations you have to follow. And one of the key ones is that there is a cost share. And that's little known because we have it and nobody else around us does. But what we do is we look at the road frontage of the substandard road and how many houses they're going to put in, and then we have a certain amount of money that will be collected at the CO time of each house. So, in other words, let's say, for instance, that you've got 150 houses and each lot's $5,000 cost share. You do the math. That's what the developer has to pay his part of improving the road
over the length of that project.
Yes. So when you look at the Virtue Road and you say, well, what did they do? Well, if you drive down it,
yeah,
you can see that it's been widened, cut, curb and guttered, sidewalk, walking trail, new bridge, a roundabout, and we stopped. Okay, well, I've got a grant that will pick up where that stop is at and the curve, and we will lower where before we raised the road. When we get on around the corner, we'll lower the road so that the residents that come out of Evans will be able to see to the left and see cars coming.
Gotcha.
See, it's a blind spot now. So we look at it from the point of view of what really, engineering-wise, what really does need to be done. When you look at the engineering portion of it, we've always been an engineer-driven town. The 7 people that started 4 of them were engineers out at Oak Ridge.
Interesting. Well, that makes sense.
You look at my planning commission, and I've got 4 engineers on there, 2 on the board. So it's kind of a thing where we try to look at it from that standpoint, and that really helps us with our grants.
That's cool. That's awesome. Look, with all that being said, what do you feel are some of the biggest challenges Farragut is facing?
Biggest challenges right now will be to continue the vision. As elected officials, you would like to see people that come after you that follow the same vision plan. And that's not to overextend yourself, number one, with things that, projects that really will not be what I call long-term successful.
Yeah.
You know, when we look at road projects, we're very careful in doing that, and because whenever we improve a road, we generally also improve the sidewalk and the walking trail part of it. And that's the reason this town has more sidewalks and walking trails than any other town its size.
So when you talk about like continuing the vision, I know there is a growing, I would say. Well, I'll back up for a second. Let me gather my thoughts here for a minute. We've had a lot of people move to the area in the last couple of years. And I would say partly out of that group, and maybe some people have been here a while, it sounds like a growing number of people who want to put a halt on growth. Essentially wanting to tell landowners that they can't develop, essentially telling builders they can't build. To what you said, though, that's not really, first of all, I don't think that's legal. Number two, it's not necessarily in line with that vision that they're talking about. How do you try to keep that going?
Well, it is illegal, by the way. Yeah. You know, again, private property rights are king. The only way you can stop that, like what you're talking about, is for them to form a co-op and buy the land.
Buy the land. Yep.
And then you can take that land and you can put it in a conservatory. And what that does is that keeps it that way forever. And most of the time, the state will work with you on property tax. So what you're doing is you're basically building you a private park.
Right.
But I think the last piece of commercial property that I remember seeing sold for about $180 an acre. Now, trying to get together and purchase, say, the Ford property for conservatory, that would be a lot of people having to put in quite a bit of money.
Yes.
To try to do that. So the property owner who has the right to sell it, has the right to develop it. For me to try to stop that, I'll get sued and I'll lose.
And when you say you mean the town of Farragut?
Town of Farragut, yeah.
Yeah.
We would get sued and we would lose. Now individuals can do whatever they want in that case. They can bring lawsuits to try to stop development. It happens all over the place. But again, they lose.
Yeah, because you'd have to really prove a reason why that development couldn't happen. I mean, I don't see. Kind of hard when you have a piece of property that abuts one of the main roads in town to say it can't be commercial. I mean, that's
Well, of course,
we have a lot of precedence that says that otherwise.
whenever Knox County come down Kingston Pike, they zoned both sides of the street commercial before we were ever incorporated. So it's been that way for 60, 70 years.
Yeah.
So right now, you have a good example. There's a piece of property over behind Ingalls that is sandwiched between two developments.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a developer is buying it, and it could be set up to where he could probably put 3 to 4 houses an acre in there, but he's not. He's downzoning it
Okay.
to 1.5 houses per acre.
Really?
Now, a lot of people think, well, that's just opposite of what they do. Well, it depends on the property,
Right.
and what's around it. When you take two subdivisions like what's there, one's a condo and one of them's just a regular housing project, you really kind of like to build kind of what's near it, okay? And that's makes the residents around it happy. But you go to other areas like out off McPhee Road, big farm out there, okay, which was Schubert property. That's where the Grove is at, and when you look at that and you say, well, what's the costing? Well, it's not affordable housing.
No.
By any means. I mean, I think they start at 900 and go up.
I was looking at just the other day some of those townhomes.
Townhomes?
Those townhomes are 2,100 square feet, and they're almost 700,000.
Right, and up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's dependent. And there again, when you get in on the front end of it, you can kind of design as you go what you want. In other words, you can have different countertops, you can have different floors, ground molding, tray ceilings. There's things like that you can do that will increase the cost.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I mean, those are Saddlebrook neighborhoods. They build a great house. I live in a Saddlebrook house. They come well done. But to the point, one of the things that as a real estate agent, one thing I see, and of course when I say that, most people go, well, you're a real estate agent, you want to sell more houses. Yes, I always want to sell more houses, that's a given, but that's not the point of that I'm going to make here. One thing that I feel like the town of Farragut or West Knoxville as a whole is kind of missing out on is some different type of housing for people. Let's say you're younger professionals, or even your let's say retirees or empty nesters who want to downsize. We're not really building that in this area. I mean, a 2,100 square foot townhome would be that house, but at 700,000, That's not too many. I mean, you're not going to leave Village Green and move to that typically.
No. Um, Really, we're in a situation where land cost, as you build out, and you know this, as you get closer to build out, the cost of property elevates. And that means that you cannot put in $400,000 homes like Horton or whoever, okay, on property that is expensive as property is in Town of Farragut. And it's really, you're starting to see it more. I mean, you still have some in Hardin Valley that's affordable because they're building out there.
Yeah.
You do have it more as you get into the unincorporated portion of Knox County as you head east. Okay, out of Farragut.
Which there's a lot more land that way.
There is, yeah.
Seymour is an area where more development, they're able to build some more affordable housing. One of the problems I see though, like, okay, so your teachers, your police, your firefighters, your people who work at the local businesses. I mean, a lot of these businesses are service level, right? We talk about restaurants, grocery stores. A lot of those folks, and I mean, I know this isn't something you control.
Yeah.
I understand that, but it is an issue I see is, because the next topic I'm going to bring up, I think this does play a part of it. Those people have to drive from where they live. Well, I mean, Julie Blaylock lives in Alcoa or Maryville, I think she said.
Yeah.
So she commutes from there to the Farragut Chamber. I would say a lot of the people who probably work for the town of Farragut most likely don't live in the town of Farragut. And then the flip side is then we have complaints on traffic. So I wish there was a way. I know anytime anybody brings up anything of density creates more affordability in a lot of ways. And I think there's a way to do density appropriately, but the minute you bring in a high density project, everybody screams because they think more traffic, and I think possibly less traffic.
Well, that right there is the big question, and I answer that in one way. We kind of had a choice, not on our part, but on the landowner for the Biddle property, Mary and Jim Biddle. Okay, they own a lot of property. They own from Kingston Pike back and on up the hill up to behind Eddie Ford's house.
Okay.
And so they were approached by a big box. Okay, let's just call it what it is. It's Lowe's.
Okay.
And that didn't work out. Okay, because a lot of your people like that, they want to do a land lease. Okay, and the Biddles had just come out of a land lease, a very long one, and they had a derelict building sitting there.
Right.
Where Kroger's had moved, over, and it was really a kind of a black eye for our town.
Yeah.
That particular building had graffiti all over it, and the windows busted out and boarded up, and just totally in disrepair. And so, of course, Bud Cullum, who is a 1982 Farragut graduate, decided that he wanted to put a town center there, and he got it worked out to where he could. And so when you look at that, okay, what would generate, and of course there's apartments back there, what would generate the most traffic? Lowe's or an apartment complex?
I would 100% say Lowe's.
Yeah, sure it would. And the thing about a Lowe's is they open at 8 o'clock in the morning, right when school traffic is going on.
Right.
They close at 9 o'clock at night, so they're there the whole day, and you've got cars coming and going constantly. Well, it wouldn't be such a big deal if the interstate freeway was 4 lanes all the way through Knoxville to the split.
Yeah.
But it's not. They stopped at Lovell, and it necks down to 3. Now, you and I, if we're going down through there and we see a little bit of a backup, we just kind of get over in the left lane, and in a few minutes we're through it.
Right.
But tourists or somebody traveling through don't know that. So they go to Waze or Google or whatever, and it tells them to get off, go to Kingston Pike, go down Kingston Pike as a detour,
Right.
and go to Campbell Station, on Campbell Station, and get back on the freeway before they were interrupted in their travels. So we get a lot of detour traffic. And if there's a wreck, then we really get hammered with detour traffic.
Right.
There's nothing I can do to stop that. Nothing.
Well, in one other aspect of the traffic in the town of Farragut that I've noticed is it's heavily impacted with school traffic. School traffic is a big deal. A lot of that is, I mean, you see it. It's parents driving their kids to school, and it's a free country. You can do what you want, but I mean, you can't really you can't change the whole traffic system just for parents to drive their kids. I mean, there are buses. You know what I'm saying? I just, that's one of the things I struggle with, because I remember, okay, this last spring break, I mean, I don't have a kid in school anymore. My daughter's 23. I was driving. I live on the north side of Campbell Station. I tend to stop at Dunkin' Donuts a couple times a week to get some coffee on the way in. Just a guilty pleasure I have. And I remember pulling in there, walked in. I was like, wow, number one, there was nobody inside, right? Like, there was nobody standing waiting. My coffee was ready. And that's when it first hit me. I'm like, man, this feels weird, because I was just here on Friday and it was slammed. Then I got in my truck heading down Campbell Station, and like nobody on the road. And I was like, what's this weird? And then it hit me. I was like, oh, it's spring break. School's out. That was the number one biggest difference. And for that whole week, everything there was just no traffic. So I really see how that impacts a lot.
It does, and that's something I have no control over too, because Knox County School Board is Knox County School Board.
Mm-hmm.
They're not controlled by Knox County, or they're not controlled by the town of Farragut or city of Knoxville. They do their own thing, and so what we try to do is work with them to see if there's a better traffic pattern that can be set up, better timing, and sometimes there is, and sometimes there's not. And but with the new red light system that we've got, and I've not talked about that, but it's a new system that we got. That was a $7 million grant, and it is a pollution mitigation grant.
Okay.
Now, what that means for us is we're stringing fiber optic cable all through our town.
Is that what's happening right now with
Yes.
at the corner of, okay.
Yeah. And the purpose of that is to put in new red light control panels at the pole, new poles and new lights. And these lights will have cameras. And it's not for speeding, and it's not for running red light. That camera is strictly to see what's going on at that intersection. So when we hook all this together, we'll have a control panel in the town hall. It's Windows based. It is a programmable and upgradable system. So what we'll be able to do is we'll be able to set the lights for the turn arrows at certain times of the day to fit the traffic need. So, and what that's called is traffic management. So what we'll be able to do is we'll be able to divide Kingston Pike in quadrants, and you'll be able to time the lights to where you put so many cars in each quadrant.
Gotcha.
Okay, and don't sound like a big deal, but it is when you're watching what's going on, and you develop a pattern and you adjust your lights for that daily pattern.
Well, yeah. So an area of congestion currently would be between, say, Campbell Station and the other side of the Biddle Farm, like in front of the high school, where seems to be. So
Concord Road, West End.
Yeah. So with this new system, you'd basically essentially be able to time it to where you could kind of flush some of that traffic out, keep people from sitting there.
Yeah.
That makes, I mean, that obviously makes a lot of sense, which would also mitigate the. I know there's been people who have said, well, we need to widen the road, and I know that's something the town of Farragut does not want to do, because one of the keys is a walkable town center.
Well, that is a small portion of it. Really, in all honesty, Kingston Pike's a state highway. So
Don't have any control
I
over it
don't have
anyway.
any control over widening it or narrowing it or doing anything with it other than to try to make sure that the drainage and the light systems are proper, okay? Water control, and stormwater control, and then the red light systems. Now, one thing that you got to think about is the volume. Uh, when you widen the road, they did down at Cedar Bluff,
Mm-hmm.
and what happened? You just filled it up.
Right.
Okay, did you help the traffic congestion? No, you didn't. You just filled it up. With us, we're better served to try to manage it by quadrants as far as how we time everything. We'll be having a new red light eventually at Rustgate, which is right across from First Baptist Concord Church.
Okay.
Their driveway, their exit, will be right there at Rustgate. They're going to move it over from its current one, and there'll be a traffic light there. So we just developed another quadrant, okay? Eventually, both ends of Jamestown will have a traffic light.
Okay.
The first one will be on Campbell Station right there by the fire hall and the community center. Then the next one will be on the other end. And what that'll do is also put another quadrant on Kingston Pike. So when you start adding quadrants, you can start manage traffic in that respect. Then on Campbell Station, when you look at the lights down through there, on the north end, we're a little shy on lights, okay? And we're really kind of shy on the south end. So there'll be a light at Loop Road,
Okay.
okay? So if you're headed north, that's another quadrant that you're picking up right there.
Mm-hmm.
And then there also will be that one there at Jamestown where you've picked up another quadrant there. And that's a very important quadrant to pick up because that's the one that's actually approaching the corner of Campbell Station, Kingston Pike.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what you're doing is you're allowing another gap of cars, and the gap is the key because when you have gaps, then you can fill them with a turn arrow.
Right.
So again, I said we're engineer driven. We sure are, and we've studied this to the point to where I can run all of my red lights on probably 9 or 10 strands of fiber. I'm putting in 144,
Wow.
but I'm doing it for the future because we don't know what's coming down the pike as far as how we'll have driverless cars or whatever, and you'll need to talk to them. The car won't know if somebody's in the crosswalk.
Right.
They won't know if they're in a wheelchair and they're going across slow or pushing a baby carriage. They won't know if a car is turning. You know, there's a lot of things that they won't know. They'll have to know, and this is an upgradable system.
So that's talking about the Kingston Pike stretch, but one of the other problems we have obviously is the interstate, which again is not something. One common theme I'm picking up here is there's some things that the town of Farragut controls, and there are a lot of things the town of Farragut has to just kind of deal with.
Yes, we have to deal the cards that were dealt,
Yeah.
and we did that with one Band-Aid down the interstate. As you're going north, right? You said you go to Duncan.
Yeah.
Well, we widened the road there, kind of in front of Duncan,
Mm-hmm.
and we split the lanes. So now, and we've got decals on the road to tell you which lane you need to be in if you're headed west, okay? Because all these people that cut through our town, they'd get hung up right there.
Right.
And so now they've got their lane to get in, and they can get back on the freeway.
Which I've always been amazed at how many people get on the interstate headed was that west?
West,
Yeah.
yep.
Headed west. Like I mean that's them going to Loudon, Roane County. Like that's them going away from town.
It's them getting back on from cutting through our town.
Yeah, which now that makes a lot of sense when you say it that way. So you, based on what I'm hearing, you feel having control of the traffic lights. And also I do know there are some future projects with the interstate that Department of Transportation will be.
Just come about. We originally had money put, and I thank Jason Zachary for this, money put aside through the governor to fix our exit. Okay. The design was a diverging diamond, which I thought which is the same as a 407, Sevierville.
Yeah.
Which takes a whole lot of real estate, and it's very expensive. Probably overkill for us because how close we are to being built out. And, and they were looking at it because of the through traffic. Well, all I wanted was basically level road below the interstate instead of above the interstate. In other words, give me another lane underneath and a sidewalk and fix the stormwater.
Yeah.
See, what people don't realize is this interstate was built in the 60s. And I watched it as a kid being built. And they put in corrugated, galvanized pipe, drainage pipe. Well, throughout the years of everybody using fertilizers like they have, the fertilizer attacks the galvanized and eats it up. Well, when it does that, then water and then air, it rusts.
Right.
And then what happens is the pipe rusts out on the bottom. It has no support, so it starts to collapse. As it collapses, it gets thinner. It won't carry the water. Campbell Station, we've got pictures of a woman in a Toyota minivan, and I'm not going about a brand, but it just so happens she had an Arkansas tag on. She was sitting there in the water with water up to the door handle. Her window was open, and she was up on top of the van waiting for somebody to rescue her. So when water is up to the door handle underneath Campbell Station, we've got a drainage problem.
Yeah.
And then you go up to level road. As you approach it, the interstate, if we have a bigger rain event, there's a great big puddle that gets right there. People hydroplane wreck. So what they end up doing is they shut it off to one lane, headed east, and it backs traffic all the way up to 321 and all the way up to Buttermilk Road on 40. Guess where they want to do? They want to get off and cut through traffic. So we have a Congo train of trucks that get off at Watt Road and come through Farragut, along with cars. So the key here was to fix it. Well, we had money, and then the new commissioner, Butch Ely, said, guys, you need to sharpen your pencils. Y'all need to get your act together. And that's talking about TDOT. Well, they did a 10-year plan. That dropped our exit off. But they added the 408. The 408 is a new exit that's 1 mile past the 407 for Buc-ee's and for the Cherokee project, Cherokee Indian project.
So they dropped ours, added that.
Yeah. Well, of course, I complain fiercely, deaf ears, but, and I was even told, just Ron, drop it. There's not going to be any money for years to come. And, but I had the opportunity to talk to Senator Haggerty about it, and he said see what he could do. And we were told to meet at the scales, the eastbound scales, for a meeting with Butch Ely, and all the mayors were there, and Zachary and everybody else, and he told us about a $132 million project. It would first be a study. It'd be environmental. Environmental means stormwater.
Yeah.
And then it would be a $600 million project that would cover 18 miles from 640 interchange all the way to the split. And it would include Campbell Station and Watt Road. And it would include widening freeway. The other thing it would include is getting rid of the scales.
which is a huge deal because of, I mean, we do get a ton of truck traffic, and
Yeah.
so if they're all slowing down for the scales, the weigh station, and then getting back on the road, that's a big ordeal.
Yeah, they plan to do a different type of scale, and this will be what they call a rolling scale. And you see them in the middle of the road, in the median quite often. And what the truck does, if it's running 65 mile an hour, then it slows down to 55 on a DXL lane, and it goes across the scales at 55. And the transponder reader picks up the weight, the date, the time, and it sends it to the truck's electronic logbook. And then the truck speeds back up in an Excel lane. So they're going from 65 to 55 to 65
Right.
instead of to a dead stop.
Stop. Right.
And go. But they also want to put a fifth lane from Watt Road up to the top of the hill, because that right there, you have trucks that are getting on it 5, 10 mile an hour going up that hill after they stop and got fuel and eat or whatever. And you got cars coming from Atlanta and from Nashville, and they're running the speed limit or higher,
Right.
and they run up behind one of those trucks and they wreck. And that section of road is arguably has more wrecks on it than any other section of I-40,
So
coast to coast.
so I heard it said, and you would know better than this, but that's our section of road. This 4075 deal has more truck traffic on it. It's like the third most trafficked by trucks of any other stretch of interstate.
Yes, it is, because it's two of them together. And we have quite a few of them that get off at Watt Road to beat the scales. I call them outlaw trucks.
Yeah.
And then you have a lot that just get off to beat the traffic whenever there's a wreck. But that will be changing soon, because about another year in next year's budget, I'm putting a roundabout at the lower park entrance.
Yeah, semis love roundabouts.
Be a vertical roundabout. So a straight truck, a dump truck, a bus, a delivery truck can all go around it, but a 93-foot trailer will not go around it. So that's three reasons. One is that. The other is to slow people down. And then the other one's just for safety, so people can get in and out of the park.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's really tough. And if there's a wreck and you're trying to leave the park, it's really hard to get out. So
Well, so it definitely sounds like, I think a lot of people get frustrated because they don't, obviously progress is slow. Like, I mean, it's hard. You don't have control of the time frame for when the interstate's going to happen. That's somebody else. But there is a plan. There is something. The people don't see something happening. They feel nothing's happening, but things are happening.
yes, this June will end the year. July starts the new fiscal year. The study will start, and it'll be about an 18-month study. And it'll be environmental. It'll be all the way from the split to the 640 interchange. Now, whenever they start buying right-of-way to do the widening, I'm sure they'll buy what it takes to do the choice lanes, because that's where they're going to go with this. Nashville will be getting them first. If we're lucky, we may be second.
So when you say choice lane, for somebody who doesn't know, what are we talking about?
It will be lanes like you see in Florida, where you have a reader transponder up on by your mirror.
So like a toll.
Yeah, like a toll. But it will be just the people that want to use it,
An express lane.
more or less. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And but now the thing that I'm still pushing on, and it's hopefully will gain traction with our federal legislators, is to, again, let's go back and let's look at the bypass. This would fall into the pollution mitigation grant area for a bypass study to begin with, and that would be not like what we've seen before, like the orange and blue route. This will be farther north, and it would be going through Anderson and Roan, and then there would have to be a bridge, but across the water. But
You're talking about a project there that, I mean,
yeah,
you're talking a long ways out.
well, I would like to see the study here soon.
Studies, yeah,
Yeah,
to get it started. But I
right.
mean, as far
Yeah,
as like it actually mitigating traffic today, that's a long ways out.
it won't be in my lifetime. No,
Yeah,
no, it's
but that is again looking to the
yeah.
future, trying to plan for that growth. I mean, and not just growth, but the traffic we have. Um, that's yeah, it's pretty wild. So it's good to know. It's good to know for those listening. It's good to know that there are things the town has things in the works. And I know traffic is one of probably the hottest topics in our area. Um, I know a lot of people, and we kind of talked about this a little bit before, that the development, the growth, the new housing starts, and apartments. Apartments have been a big hot topic. A lot of people equate all that to just making traffic worse. Um, when you hear, how do you respond to that?
Well, I respond to it in looking at other areas. See how it has affected other areas. You know, if you think that it's going to affect this one negatively, then go to another area that's got a similar size development and camp out. Okay, just hire somebody if you don't want to do it yourself. You can get UT students to do it for $15 an hour,
Mm-hmm.
and you can camp out and just do your own traffic study. Okay, uh, they do traffic studies anywhere you're going to put anything. In other words, the new school that'll be going in behind the old Ingalls complex, there'll be a traffic study with that. The town center, there was a traffic study for that. The apartments down in Watt Road, there was a traffic study for that. All these are done through a professional company that does that. Cannon is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
CDM Smith's another. But if you don't believe those, a lot of people says they're bogus, then go do your own. Hire a couple of UT students,
Well,
let them sit there and count cars.
well, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm not Mr. Pro apartment, okay? But at the same time, I live up the street from an apartment complex, and it's I mean for several years now have never had any issue. I'm not waiting. I'm not waiting for cars pulling in and out. I'm not waiting for the school bus to pick up 30 kids. Uh, None of the stuff that I think a lot of people talk about that apartments bring have I seen. It's also one of the few gated communities in our area,
Right.
which always kind of makes me chuckle. Um, so like I mean to your point, well, okay, so not in the town of Farragut, but in Turkey Creek, they just I think that is finished now. That new apartment complex by
Across the
Walmart.
hospital?
Yes.
Yeah.
Um, and I heard a lot of people, grumbling about, oh, that's just going to make traffic worse. I drove by the other day, and I'm like, there's not even anybody coming and going. Um, so, but at the same time, I thought, man, in my mind, I thought, man, that's the smart place to put it because these people aren't going to be getting on the road, out and about to try to get to something. They've got everything they need right there. I mean, if anybody was going to walk in Turkey Creek, it'd be them, you know?
Well, now that really is another thing that in that location, it was really a smart move because you just had a brand new nursing school open up in the hospital. Okay, the second floor is a nursing school now
Yeah.
on that one wing, and you've got quite a few people that live over there that just walk across the street every morning to go to work. And, it's kind of, you were talking earlier about needing some place for the worker bee population to live.
Right.
Okay. What you're doing is generating that. And I think that one is a good example. That's not in Farragut. That's in the city of Knoxville. That particular complex is. But the one that you're talking about up on top of the hill there, above the Holiday Inn Express, I've never seen any traffic jams because of that. I've
Well,
got
Well, then you got the other one over off a outlet. Um, that one. I mean, so you have two.
Tapestry.
You have two apartment complexes, decent sized apartment complexes, fairly close proximity. Technically feed, pretty much the same road. Never any. I I find myself behind more people going to Cotton Eye Joe,
Yeah.
given the time of day, than anything else.
Or Top Golf.
Or Top Golf, yeah.
Yeah.
So, it's just kind of it's an interesting viewpoint people have. There are, correct me if I'm wrong, but there have been two older apartment complexes in Farragut for a long time.
Yes, the one on Grigsby Chapel, it's actually on Fritz Road.
Hmm.
Most people don't even know it's there.
I would agree.
And then the other one is back behind CVS, there across from Walgreens, and
Right on Kingston Pike.
right on Kingston Pike. And you know it. I live in Sherwood, and and I shop at CVS, and there's never been an issue with that one. So uh, what people don't realize is they're just like you and I. You go to work in the morning, you come home in the evening. You may go out to eat.
Right.
You may take the dog for a walk. Whatever. I mean, it's not like it's any different. They think that it's different, but it's not. And of course, the one in the town center where you've got that many restaurants and different things going in, you're going to have a lot of people that just get out and walk. Because what people did not realize is the first part of the town center was actually Kroger's and that whole strip right there.
Hmm.
Okay, that whole line of businesses down through there. Well, now you've got the other ones here that's going in right now, and then the apartments. So you've got really a town center, and Brookline is the center road between the two.
It's pretty cool. While we're on that topic, let's go ahead and what kind of what's going in over there? What can you tell us? What's the inside scoop on the town center?
Well, for sure, you've seen the Chase Bank. That was a great addition because a lot of people have got Chase Bank credit cards, but there's no Chase Bank around here.
Well, and that's, if I'm not mistaken, that's the first Chase Bank
Yes.
in this area. So for a lot of people, anybody listen to this who has recently moved from, say, California to here, which there's a lot of those people. That was one of the things we struggled with, is they were like, well, I'll just do a wire or something. Well, their bank was in California. They didn't have one here.
Right.
Um,
Nashville was.
yeah. So having that for people who are moving in from other areas is really a big deal. I find it interesting that we're the ones that got it.
Well, this is Bud was instrumental in getting it, and that was a deal where he had to do a land lease on that piece of property. He couldn't buy it because
Gotcha.
the Biddles only sell so much property a year, but for tax reasons.
Well, it's better to own than it. Yeah.
So, but now, of course, Aldi started it, and they built that, and then Aldi bought the property. Okay. See, Chase Bank's got a land lease. So at 10 years, they'll make a decision whether either to buy the property or continue with another land lease. Right beside it is Super Chicks. Now, a lot of people, that's new to them, but there happens to be one on Clinton Highway.
Okay.
It's right there in front of the Target and the Kroger. And it's a kid magnet. If you think Chick-fil-A is a kid magnet,
Yeah.
you're fixing to see one in Farragut, because this is chicken, strips, nuggets, fresh cut fries. They peel them and cut them right there. You see 50-pound bags of potatoes stacked up to the ceiling.
Okay.
And then they have custard. So it's kind of a unique concept, and they're going to have an outside sitting area, which you're going to see that at a lot of those places that are right across from it will be a Parlor Donuts.
Okay.
And Parlor, if you've seen those in Florida or South Carolina, they have custom-made donuts. They have different types of coffees. They have milkshakes. They have breakfast sandwiches. So that's right there. And then if you go a little bit farther back is Tupelo Honey.
Nice.
And which they have one downtown. A lot of people eat at the one in Asheville.
Yeah.
If you're like us, you go over there occasionally, and but it'll be a different type, and it'll be a bigger restaurant. You're going to have Bradley's Gifts, which is a gift shop. You're going to have the stretch something, I can't remember, but anyway, it's a physical fitness thing, and then and another workout. I think a yoga
Okay.
place. There'll be a medical building that will have consultation doctors, and there will be some other small shops in 3 different buildings.
Okay.
But anyway, it's something that will be full pretty quick, because it's, I've got one insurance company that's just chomping at the bit to move down there. I won't mention the name, but anyway, they're really interested in, and they're kind of waiting to see what's left and where they can position themselves the best. Okay.
Gotcha.
But and then he's got another restaurant that he's talking to that he don't have signed yet. But so we may end up with probably 4 restaurants minimum in there,
Okay.
and then a lot of Bradley's Gifts going in is it's a nice little bouquet type of shop, and that's kind of who he's after.
Nice. Nice. What is, so I know it's commercial apartments, and then the plan is townhomes.
Townhomes in the back. I think I'm not sure that Fieldon will be building those. The scuttlebutt is that Saddlebrook will be.
Okay.
So if you the
Yeah.
and what they're looking at is a 3-story type of townhome. It looks like the front of it looks like a brownstone.
Mm-hmm.
Got parking back underneath, and then a patio on the roof.
Which I mean, that will be unique for Farragut.
It will. Yeah.
It sounds like it'll kind of fit that that area, though, the way it's being built out. Again, people don't normally. The goal is not to live in an apartment forever.
Right.
But not everybody wants a single family detached home. Not everybody wants lawn care maintenance and all that stuff that comes with it. And some people want to be close to the action. That's why downtown Knoxville has gotten so popular. They want to be able to, like you said, like walk to the grocery store, walk to the local pub, walk to dinner, or just be outdoors within the community. So it'll be interesting to see that come out. So that's cool. Is a cool update on the town center. I want to just touch base. We have time. I asked in a local, in my Facebook group, Everything Farragut. I asked, hey, any topics anybody wants to talk about,
Sure.
and so I think this would be a good time just to kind of go over these. The first one was one of the ladies who responded was concerned about parking near the high school fields during the games on the road, fear of kids getting hit. Said that again, added to that was concern with all the new businesses and more traffic and this, that, and the other. I'll already go ahead and note that Vice Mayor Louise Poblin already commented and said that that's basically all Knox County schools. Like,
It is.
so with that being said, how do you? I'm assuming you get that a lot about the schools. How do you handle that conversation? Because there's only so much you can do.
Well, we try. What we'll be able to do is time the lights to help them as far as in and out of there. But with having the cameras, I'll be able to see when they're coming, and we can make the turn arrow quicker. But and then when they're leaving, the same thing.
But you won't be able to keep people off the street.
But parking, I mean, they're not going to park on Kingston Pike.
Right.
You're going to see. Here's what they do. They park in all the lots that they've got to park in. Okay. Now, understand that road that goes up through there is not our road. That's a driveway that they own. Then you'll see them parking over in the other lot that's between the high school and the other two. And then they'll be parking over in the shopping center, Tommy Van's shopping center at West End, because it's real easy to walk through the bushes to get over to the
Gotcha.
to the field. Whenever I hear that, I raised a child in Hickson, Chattanooga's suburb of Chattanooga, and they had the same issue. And what happened there, and this is something that the alumni were able to get together and get certain people to help with traffic management. And they out there, and they had on the yellow top, orange tops, and the flag, and they were parking people.
Yeah.
And that was something that they had to do it because Hickson Pike was, again, a state road, and they couldn't park on it. And what would happen is they get towed.
Yeah.
And everybody just screamed because they were getting towed. So the alumni group got together, the football alumni group got together and got some of the moms and some of the dads to work it on rotation every game. And they worked the area to where there was probably, I guess, 4 good-sized fields that they just started parking them in those fields. I think they're going to have to come up with something like that because when you've got consistent number 1 football teams and number 1 baseball teams,
You're going to have people show up.
As you see, you're going to have more people.
Which I know Dr. Bartlett is very active with the school. I mean, honestly, that's something that the parents and Dr. Bartlett and the sports, the athletic directors, and all that need to. I mean, that's their thing.
Yeah, I've not had a chance to sit down with Donald Dodgen, who's the athletic director. I know him real well, and Dr. Bartlett, but this is something that's going to have to be addressed now because the town center used to be the parking lot.
Right.
And this is where this is going. It's not going to be a parking lot anymore. So not only for athletic events, but a lot of the kids that didn't want to pay for a parking pass or couldn't get one up on campus were parking down there and then walking across.
I remember seeing people tailgate and stuff in the parking lot. I mean, obviously that was convenient for them, but they were also in a parking lot of a rundown Kroger. So I mean, obviously that wasn't going to stay that way for forever. So on the school topic, another person asked, hey, like when are we getting more schools?
Okay. Good question.
What's being done to kind of push this along?
Okay. This is something that they first looked at the property out on McPhee.
Near the train tracks.
Yeah, and I think they really spent a lot of time and effort looking at it. But one of the things that happened out there a number of years ago was a train derailment. In any place you've got a spur, you have that potentially happening. And so I think that was one of the big concerns. Plus, they were going to have to build a road out through there, all the way to where the school was at. And of course, we told them we couldn't have any stacking on McPhee Road. So that meant that it had to be a very long road going to the school to where they would come in and come back out on McPhee.
Ultimately, they canceled that idea.
Yeah, and that's a heavily wooded area, and they would have had to cut a lot of trees, but which the town ended up buying that property, and we're not going to cut the trees, but we're going to leave that wooded, but as a park. But what they chose was the piece of property back behind the old Ingalls, 41 acres. Doug Horn has owned it for since the late 70s,
Okay.
since before the town was incorporated. Doug has owned it. He sold it to him for what I thought was a really good deal compared to what commercial real estate is today per acre. And so the chore then was to design something that was usable and not have traffic problems. So, and I worked with them, with the school bus guy, ahead of that, and the engineer, and what we come up with is it will have a road that comes in off of Village Commons, which there's a red light right there at Peterson and Village Commons.
Okay.
So you turn on to Village Commons and you go to right behind the Farragut Press, and the road will go, the entry will be right there. And it will go all the way to the east, almost to Boring Road, or Boring Lane, excuse me, not Boring Road, Boring Lane. And then it'll come back. It'll be a big paperclip.
Okay.
And so right this moment, the design is, and this is the first blush, but is about 150 car stack. They need about 250. So it just means making the paperclip longer. It'll almost go to Boring Lane. And that will be for all the moms that are dropping their kids and picking them up. That's where they'll go and come, that particular way. The buses will not. The buses will come in off of Boring Road, which comes off of Smith Road. And
Okay.
that entry right there will be a entrance for, not only for the teachers, because they'll have a teacher's lot strictly for them, and then also it will be a queuing area for the buses. So the buses will come in right there, they'll go through this queuing lane, and they'll drop off or pick up, and then they'll go back out that way. And I'll put a red light, we will put, Town of Farragut will put a red light right there at Smith and Boring.
So, and that's going to be the middle school.
No,
No?
that is elementary. That's K through 5.
K through 5. Okay. So if that's K through 5, then that basically replaces 2 current schools.
It will, I won't say it will replace it. It will take a load off of the schools.
Okay.
And they'll be able to repurpose buildings.
Okay.
In other words, okay, you took a load off the primary.
Right.
Okay, which is great because that's a traffic snarl down there. Then it'll take the load off of the 3 through 5.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, take a load off of them. Well, by doing that, then the 6 through 8 will be able to pick up some of the space. So they'll be sharing a lot of space.
There'll be more room for 'em.
Yeah.
So, and I would assume that would also alleviate a good chunk of traffic from that section near the town center, because, I mean, one of the problems you have is you have 3 schools basically
Right.
bringing people in. And I mean, even if the schools have staggered start time, there's still traffic coming, overlapping each other.
There is, yes.
So that pulls quite a few cars out of that area.
Yeah, and of course, the one that's really, really overextended is the primary. I mean, there are 400 students over capacity.
So what, is there any talk about the high school?
High school is not over capacity, and it has room, okay? And here, and see, that is a double-edged sword, because when you start saying, I'm going to cut students and send them somewhere else, then what happens is, then these classes, okay, that are more college level classes get cut.
Yeah.
Your language classes get cut. A lot of that kind of stuff gets cut. And of course, that's one of the big draws for Farragut High School.
Right.
I think Dr. Bartlett told me that they had $44 million in scholarships this year.
It's crazy
to students.
I know it's well, and I would say Farragut High School, Farragut school system in general is a big draw for people to move here. I know it is for a fact. We've helped people literally sell their house in Lenore City to buy a house in Farragut just so their kids could go to all the schools here. And anybody who's moved knows that's a big undertaking, just to move, 20 minutes down the road. But it's worth them long term for their kids' education.
Well, you've got people moving here for Oak Ridge, for the new
Oh,
project that's going on out there. And we see that's something a lot of people think, well, you're getting this high influx of people moving here. We've always had that.
yeah,
It's not like this is something new because of Oak Ridge. And,
right.
and, and when you look at the people that started our town, where do they all work at?
Oak Ridge.
Oak Ridge. I mean, it was, a lot of people didn't realize that one of the big reasons they started town was because of stormwater. Because the developers weren't putting it in, and we had flooding everywhere.
So the town came together to fix that issue.
Yeah, for everybody that's listening, pick up a copy of Full Speed Ahead and read it, and you'll learn what we faced as a town in getting it started and bringing it up to a certain point. It's a good read. You pick it up and start reading it, you can't lay it down.
Well, and I know you've asked me a couple times personally if I've read it, and I know it is on my to read list. All right, so I got two more questions
Okay.
here. One was any update on the random gunshot at McPhee Park that hit a person in the foot?
As far as knowing who it was, I mean, that's Knox County, when they'll tell you it's an ongoing investigation. But what we did as a town, we sent out letters to all the property owners warning them that they need to be careful if they were target practicing or whatever they were doing. Prior to that, we had been regularly hearing gun noise. Since that's happened, we've not been hearing any gun, since we sent out the letters. We sent it to all residents in that area. And we've not been hearing any more. So, but the lady did have the round taken out of her foot, and she's doing fine. So,
Well, so that was pretty much. I mean, it sounds like just a random accident that somebody not near. I mean, completely unintentional,
yeah,
which is scary in itself. But if the shooting has if the gunfire has ceased, then not really a problem.
I think that they're probably now more concerned about if they start shooting, they'll be found and be prosecuted. So,
I would say that's a reasonable fear.
yeah.
Um. Okay, so and this one was probably my favorite question. Ask him how he plans to deal with all the idiots in town who only complain and stir up trouble. Um, I it may be harsh, but I will say that they're definitely a group of people that seem to stir up a lot of trouble. Um, how how first of all, how do you deal with that?
Well, I'm thick-skinned. I mean, and I'm very patient. I'm a professional mediator by trade, and I typically just listen to them, and sometimes we can help them, sometimes we can't. A lot of times it's something that is in their mind the best thing to do, but what they're not looking at is long term. It may be one of the things that was a big question was why do we not have two left turn lanes on the Kingston Pike? Well, we used to have that years ago, but what happened was you had Concord Road and then you had Campbell Station Road. Well, whenever they were connected, then all of a sudden the traffic patterns changed drastically, and we had to have a straight through lane.
Gotcha.
So we have one turn lane, a straight through lane, and a right turn lane. And and the traffic studies tell you what you need, not somebody's opinion.
Right.
Okay, and we get those opinions quite frequently, but a lot of times they just don't know that it's the Paul Harvey thing. They just don't know the rest of the story. But in that case, and they say, well, with the apartments coming, we're definitely going to need two left turn lanes. Well, that won't really alleviate any traffic on Kingston Pike. What will happen is when we get the quadrants to where we can time and how many cars are in each one, then we have better control and we don't have the stacking like what we have now.
But in I mean, obviously, apartments will add. They will add more cars, but they won't necessarily add as much as I think people think they will.
Well, and that's the other thing. They think it's going to add to the schools. But most of the time, when you've got apartment dwellers, um, you know, are they there for that reason?
No, so typically it's a temporary place
Yeah.
to live until they can go buy a home or figure out where they want to live in the area kind
Or
of
if they're
deal.
temporarily assigned to this
Yeah, yeah,
job
yeah.
site.
Maybe they're only here for a year or two, anyways. Yeah, I mean, most people, for the majority of people, I would say apartment living is not a long term. You're definitely not raising children.
No.
You know,
Well, and I dare say that any person I walk to up on the street, ask them, did you leave your mom's and dad's house and buy a $750,000 house?
no.
No. Where did you live?
Oh yeah, first place was an
An
apartment.
apartment. So it's, now a lot of the parents here said, boy, we'd love to have more apartments so that our kids could live close to us until
Well,
they get ready to buy something.
well, I mean, even that is a little bit of. I mean, man, these new apartments are upwards of $2,000
Yes.
a month, so it's not like it's not cheap. So as far as like just dealing with people, it sounds like obviously patience. Uh, it sounds like you do listen.
Here we do, yes.
And then one of the things I found, and this is why I appreciate having you on here, is one thing I found is always kind of hard to tell everything, like to tell the whys or the hows. A lot of that doesn't happen maybe at the BOMA meetings because you're handling business. Um, so I think this is kind of a good outlet for that. But I think for a lot of people, they don't understand why something's happening. They just see that something's happening.
They do, we've had a lot of times in the neighborhoods where they have speeding, we put in traffic calming. They're speed bumps, and some people hate them. Some people are glad that they're there. Usually, the people that lives right around it that have a hard time, dealing with it, they like them.
Right.
But then the ones that are just cutting through,
The speeders.
they don't like it. So I catch the heat from those people.
Well, unfortunately, you're not going to make everybody happy.
No, we can't.
It's unfortunate, but it's part of it. All right, so on a kind of an ending note, what does the future look like for the town of Farragut?
I think it's pretty bright. We've got, like I've said before, we've got enough commercial to where we don't have to worry about the black cloud called property tax. It's we're well managed, well positioned with our town administrator and our staff. Most of our staff have been there for a long time. Matter of fact, I'll be dealing with some retirements here soon in a couple of departments, particularly one, and he's already put in his retirement notice, and that's Bud McKelvey in Public Works. He's been there for 38 years, I think.
Wow.
So, that's the kind of employees we have, and we make sure that we study to make sure that we're paying the amount that we should to be competitive. We pay insurance, and it's something that we've got a pretty happy crowd working for us, and
That's good.
but they're cross trained. So when you have somebody that has to be out, then somebody can step in and fill the position on a spot basis, and so that's a key when you've got a small group like what we do. We're typically less than 60 paid employees. So I think our budget this year is a little bit over $11 million. So that's, and a lot of it has to do with paving roads. And stormwater.
So you have what, approximately 2 years left.
Yes, I'll be done in 26. August 26th will be my last day.
What I mean, up till now, you've it seems like retirement's kept you busy. Are you going to keep on the, on that path of public service, or
No, I've got a 50 Studebaker truck sitting on the rack, and then that I've got the front end out of right now. I'm replacing the upper and lower control arms and coilover shocks. After that, I've got a 38 Chevrolet. Also, I'm building a motor for the truck. I've got a 38 Chevrolet Coupe that I need to do a little bit of work on, and it's got a new motor in it, and I need to upholstery the interior. So I've got plenty to do whenever I retire. No, I do not plan on really going any further. I've done my tour duty, and
I think that's fair.
it's we've got some younger people behind us that's coming up, and hopefully they can fill in and carry the vision on.
Carry the vision. Important, important note throughout this podcast. Well, Mayor, I appreciate you coming on. Hopefully we could do this again. Maybe now that we've had this initial one, when some more things come up, we can just hit on those topics. But I think this was pretty good. I think we covered a lot of ground. Obviously, there's a lot going on in the town of Farragut, and it's, I think it's vital that people hear about it. Not just commentary, but actually hear from your standpoint. So I really do appreciate you coming on our platform and telling us what's going on. Again, I appreciate your time.
Well, glad to do it. Appreciate you having me. And yes, we can do more as things progress. Yeah, we can do updates, and that works all across the board.
And I can't wait to see what the future brings. I'm excited for some of this news. For some of this new stuff. It'll be good. And I can't wait to see how this traffic light deal works out.
Well, it's it's going to be a learning curve to begin with, but as we bank information, then we'll be able to do programs for different times of day, and then the lights will actually tell us when we. I mean, the one thing I'm going to do is once our lights are up and going, and we've got the bugs worked out, then I'm going to hook into the freeway cameras, and then that way I can see what's going on the freeway. And I can kind of help predict what we're going to do with the cameras here in town and watching how the traffic progresses. Once we go through this enough times, we'll know what to do to kind of keep the traffic moving through the town.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Hopefully that makes a huge difference. Makes a lot of people happy. Because I know that's the one topic that gets people fired up on a regular. With that said, I think it's about time we wrap this up. I know you got a busy day ahead of you, and so do I. But I appreciate you having you on the show.
Okay, great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.